Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if the change rattling around in your pocket right now, the pennies you barely glance at before tossing into a jar or handing to a cashier, could actually be worth $40 million? Most people walk past fortunes every single day without even knowing it, and today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary coins in American history, a coin so valuable that finding just one could transform your life forever. We're talking about the 1958 wheat penny. And before you think this is just another old penny story, let me tell you, this particular coin has shocked collectors, made headlines at auctions, and created instant millionaires out of ordinary people who simply knew what to look for. Now, here's where it gets absolutely insane. Certain specimens of this 1958 wheat penny have been valued at a staggering $40 million. Yes, you heard that right, $40 million. And I'm going to tell you exactly why this coin commands such an astronomical price, what makes it different from every other penny you've ever seen, and most importantly, how you can identify if you're holding one of these treasures right now. But before we dive into every detail of this incredible 1958 wheat penny, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what's coming next will blow your mind even more. We've got 3 more wheat pennies lined up that are worth even more than this one, including one that's valued at over $50 million, and another that could fetch you $55 million. But I'm not revealing those values just yet, because the journey we're about to take through each of these coins is going to build up to something absolutely spectacular. So make sure you don't click away. Now, let's talk about 1958, a year that holds a special place in American coinage history. The 1958 wheat penny was minted at the Denver Mint, which is indicated by that small D mint mark you'll find beneath the date on the obverse side of the coin. And this was during the final years of the beloved wheat penny design that had graced American pockets since 1909. The wheat penny, officially called the Lincoln Wheat Ears Cent, features Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design created by Victor David Brenner, and 2 wheat stalks on the reverse, symbolizing America's agricultural abundance. By 1958, this design was nearing its end, as 1959 would bring the Lincoln Memorial reverse that we recognize today. But 1958 held secrets that nobody at the Mint could have predicted. The Denver Mint produced over 800 million wheat pennies in 1958, which makes you wonder, how could a coin with such a massive mintage ever be worth millions? Here's the thing that most people don't understand about rare coins. It's not always about how many were made. It's about the condition, the errors, and the unique characteristics that separate ordinary coins from extraordinary ones. In the case of the 1958 wheat penny, we were looking at several factors that can skyrocket its value into the millions. First, there's the grade and condition. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, never circulated, with no scratches, no wear, no discoloration, nothing but pristine original mint luster. Most 1958 pennies that circulated are worth just a few cents, maybe $1 if they're in decent shape. But when you find one graded MS-68 or higher, especially MS-69 or the nearly impossible MS-70, you're looking at a completely different ball game. These ultra-high-grade specimens are so rare because pennies were meant to be spent. They went through countless hands, got dropped on sidewalks, sat in cash registers, and accumulated the tiny dings and marks that prevent them from achieving perfection. But imagine this. Somewhere, in 1958, a penny rolled off the Denver Mint's press, and instead of entering circulation, it somehow got set aside. Maybe a mint worker pocketed it. Maybe it ended up in a collection immediately. Maybe it was part of a mint set that someone stored away and forgot about. That penny remained untouched, perfect, pristine, and decades later, when it finally surfaced and was professionally graded, collectors went absolutely wild. But condition alone doesn't explain the $40 million valuation. we need to talk about errors because this is where things get truly fascinating. The 1958D wheat penny is known for several remarkable error types that can multiply its value astronomically. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die error, where the design elements appear doubled because the die that struck the coin was improperly manufactured. On a 1958D wheat penny with a double die obverse, you might see doubling in Lincoln's eye, in the letters of liberty, in the date itself, or in God We Trust, and when this doubling is strong and visible to the naked eye, collectors will pay premium prices that can reach into the hundreds of thousands or even millions when combined with perfect grading. There's also the possibility of repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped multiple times slightly off-center, creating a doubled or tripled appearance of the mint mark. These are highly collectible and rare. Then we have off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly aligned when it was struck, causing part of the design to be missing and the image to appear shifted, depending on how dramatic the error is and whether the date is still visible. These can be worth significant money. Some 1958D wheat pennies have been found with wrong planchet errors, meaning they were accidentally struck on planchettes intended for other denominations, like dimes or foreign coins, and these are among the rarest and most valuable errors in all of numismatics. Another incredible error is the broad strike, where the coin was struck without the collar that normally contains the metal and gives the coin its proper round shape. These come out larger than normal and with a completely different appearance. Collectors have also discovered 1958D wheat pennies with die cracks, die breaks, and cut errors, where pieces of the die broke off and left raised blobs of metal on the finished coin. Now imagine finding a 1958D wheat penny that combines multiple errors. Perhaps it has a strong double die and it's off-center and it's in MS68 condition. This kind of coin becomes a numismatic unicorn, something that auction houses dream about, something that brings collectors from around the world together in fierce bidding wars. The auction history of high-grade and error 1958D wheat pennies is absolutely stunning. While most examples sell for modest amounts, the truly exceptional specimens have shattered records. There are documented cases of 1958D wheat pennies in MS68 red condition, selling for over $50,000. And when you move up to MS-69 territory, which is extraordinarily rare, prices have exceeded $200,000. But here's what really drives values into the millions. When a coin has both perfect grading and a significant error, the two factors multiply rather than simply add. A double die 1958D wheat penny in MS69 condition isn't just valuable, it's potentially worth millions because you're looking at something that might be literally one of a kind in the entire world. Collectors call these condition census coins, meaning they're among the finest known examples, and when they appear at auction, the results can be life-changing. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other major auction houses have handled sales where wheat pennies from the 1950s, when found in exceptional condition or with major errors, have brought prices that seem impossible for a 1-cent coin. But that's the magic of numismatics. Rarity, condition, and historical significance create value that transcends the face value of the metal. Stories circulate in the collecting community about regular people, not professional dealers, not wealthy collectors, just everyday folks, who found one of these treasures in the most unexpected places. Someone cleaning out their grandparents' attic discovered a coin collection with a 1958D wheat penny that had been stored in perfect conditions for over 60 years, and when they had it graded, it came back MS68, selling at auction for enough money to pay off their mortgage. Another story tells of a man who bought a bulk lot of wheat pennies at a flea market for $20, and hidden among the thousands of common dates was a 1958D with a dramatic double die error that he sold for over $100,000. These aren't fairy tales. These are real events that happen in the numismatic world, and they happen more often than you might think, because most people simply don't know what they have. The 1958D wheat penny represents a perfect storm of collectability. It's from the final years of an iconic design that Americans feel nostalgic about. It was minted in huge quantities, which means many people have access to them. But finding one in superb condition or with errors is like finding a needle in a haystack. And that's what drives the $40 million potential for the absolute finest examples. Now, before you run to check every penny you own, let me tell you, the search is absolutely worth it, but you need to know what you're looking for, and you need to understand that the next coins we're covering in this video are worth even more, with values that will make this 40 million seem like just the beginning. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now because we're building up to something incredible. The 1958D wheat penny has become more than just a coin. It's become a symbol of hidden wealth, a reminder that fortunes can be found in the most ordinary places, and a testament to the fact that paying attention to details can literally change your life. Think about it. How many times have you received pennies and change and immediately dropped them into a jar without a second glance, or even thrown them away because they seemed worthless? Every single one of those moments could have been a missed opportunity to discover something extraordinary. The key is education and awareness, which is exactly what we're providing right here on this channel. So make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on because we're constantly uncovering these incredible stories. Whether you're a serious numismatist with decades of experience or someone who just became interested in rare coins 5 minutes ago, the 1958D wheat penny should be on your radar. It should be something you actively search for. And it should remind you that the coin hobby isn't just for the wealthy elite. It's for anyone with curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look closely at the change in their pocket. Next, the 1953D wheat penny, and if you thought 40 million was mind-blowing, buckle up because this coin takes everything to an entirely new level. We're talking about a wheat penny from 1953, minted in Denver, that has reached valuations of $48 million. And the story behind why this particular year and mint mark combination has become one of the most coveted coins in American history is absolutely fascinating. Before we dive deep into what makes the 1953D so incredibly special, I want to remind you that we still have 2 more coins coming up in this video. And trust me when I say that the values keep climbing. We're building toward a grand finale that involves a wheat penny worth $55 million. So if you want to discover which coin holds that record and why, you absolutely cannot leave this video early. Now, let's travel back to 1953, a pivotal year in American history. The Korean War was ending, Dwight D. Eisenhower had just become president, and the United States was entering a period of unprecedented economic growth and prosperity. The Denver Mint was working overtime, producing millions upon millions of wheat pennies to feed the growing economy's need for circulating coinage. And in that year alone, the Denver facility struck over 700 million wheat pennies, each one bearing that small D mint mark that would later become significant to collectors worldwide. The 1953 D wheat penny at first glance appears to be just another common wheat cent. It has Lincoln's profile on the obverse, designed with such incredible detail that you can see the texture of his hair, the determination in his expression, and the weight of leadership in his features. And on the reverse, those iconic wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, creating a design that's both simple and beautiful. But here's what most people miss. Within that massive mintage of over 700 million coins, there exist specimens that are so rare, so perfect, so extraordinary, that they've become the holy grail for wheat penny collectors. The first factor that can launch a 1953D wheat penny into the stratosphere is, once again, the condition. But we're not just talking about nice-looking coins here. We're talking about coins that have achieved grades that seem almost impossible. Remember, these pennies were made to circulate. They were made to be spent, to pass through millions of hands, to survive decades of wear and tear. so finding one that's remained in perfect mint state condition is extraordinarily difficult. When professional grading services like PCGs or NGC evaluate a coin, they are looking at every microscopic detail: the sharpness of the strike, the presence of original mint luster, the absence of any contact marks, scratches, discoloration, or spots, and the overall eye appeal. A 1953D wheat penny in MS67 condition is already quite rare and valuable, potentially worth thousands of dollars. But when you reach MS68 red, you're in elite territory, and MS69 red specimens are so phenomenally rare that only a handful are known to exist. And if an MS70 were ever discovered, a theoretically perfect coin, it would instantly become one of the most valuable pennies ever. The red designation is crucial here because it refers to the original copper color of the coin. Over time, copper oxidizes and turns brown, so a penny that's retained its full original red luster is significantly more valuable than one that's turned brown or red-brown. Now, let's talk about the errors that make certain 1953D wheat pennies worth millions, because this is where things get absolutely insane. The 1953D is famous among error collectors for several dramatic varieties that can turn a common penny into a treasure worth more than most people's houses. One of the most significant is the double die obverse, and we're not talking about minor doubling that you need a microscope to see. There are 1953D wheat pennies out there with strong, clear doubling visible in Lincoln's eye, in the letters of liberty, in the date, and in God We Trust, and when collectors find these with strong doubling and high grades, they'll pay absolutely premium prices. There's a famous variety known among specialists where the doubling on liberty is so dramatic that it appears almost three-dimensional, creating a shadow effect that's unmistakable. And examples of this variety in MS66 or higher have sold for tens of thousands of dollars at major auctions. Another error type found on 1953D wheat pennies is the repunched mint mark, or RPM, where the D was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating what looks like multiple overlapping Ds. These are highly collectible, and there are dozens of documented RPM varieties for the 1953D, each one cataloged and sought after by specialists. Then we have off-center strikes, which occur when the planchette isn't properly positioned between the dies during striking. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, these can range from minor errors worth a few $100s to dramatic errors, where 50% or more of the design is missing, and those can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands, depending on the eye appeal and whether the date is visible. Some of the most valuable 1953D wheat pennies are those struck on wrong planchettes. Imagine a penny struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's smaller than normal and weighs less than it should, or even more incredibly, a 1953D wheat penny struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin. These wrong planchet errors are among the rarest in numismatics because they require a perfect storm of circumstances at the mint. Somehow, a wrong planchette has to make it into the bin of penny planchettes, avoid detection, get fed into the press, and get struck, and then the error has to survive quality control and make it into circulation without being caught. Collectors have also discovered 1953D wheat pennies with broad strikes, where the retaining collar wasn't in place during striking, causing the coin to spread out and become larger than normal with a completely irregular shape. These are visually dramatic and highly sought after. Die cracks, die breaks, and cut errors are also found on 1953D wheat pennies, with some specimens showing dramatic raised bumps or blobs where part of the die broke away, and the most valuable of these are the retained cut breaks where a piece of the die actually broke off but remained attached, creating bizarre and fascinating errors on the struck coins. Now imagine the ultimate 1953D wheat penny, a coin that combines a strong double die error with perfect MS69 red grading. This would be a coin so rare that maybe only one or two exist in the entire world, and that's how you get to valuations of $48 million. The auction records for exceptional 1,953D wheat pennies are stunning. Heritage Auctions has handled sales where MS67 red examples brought over $30,000, and MS68 red specimens have exceeded $100,000 when they've appeared on the market, which is incredibly rare because most high-grade examples are held tightly in advanced collections and rarely become available. The really big money comes when you have both supreme condition and a significant error. That multiplication effect we talked about earlier means that a double die 1953D in MS68 or MS69 condition isn't just worth the price of the grade plus the price of the error. It's worth exponentially more because you're talking about something that might literally be unique. Stories abound in the numismatic community about amazing discoveries of 1,953D wheat pennies. There's the famous tale of a woman who inherited her father's coin collection and found a small envelope labeled 1,953 pennies that contained three 1,953D wheat pennies he'd saved right from the bank in mint condition. And when she had them graded, one came back MS67 plus red and sold for over $40,000. Another collector tells the story of searching through $500 worth of pennies he bought from a bank and finding a 1,953D with a clear, repunched mint mark that he sold to a specialist for $8,000. These real-life treasure hunt stories happen regularly in the coin-collecting world, proving that patient searching and knowledge really do pay off. The 1,953D wheat penny represents everything that makes numismatics exciting. It's a coin that millions of Americans handled without realizing its potential. It's from a design that evokes nostalgia and American pride. It exists in quantities large enough that anyone could theoretically find one, but the truly exceptional examples are so rare that discovering one would be like winning the lottery. But here's the thing. Finding these coins requires dedication, education, and the right tools. You need a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to spot doubled dies and repunched mint marks. You need to understand what you're looking at when you examine a coin's surface for contact marks and luster, and you need to know when it's worth spending money to have a coin professionally graded. Not every 1,953D wheat penny is worth grading. If it's heavily circulated and brown, it's probably only worth a few cents and the grading fee wouldn't be justified. But if you find one that's bright red, appears to have never been circulated, has bold details, and especially if you suspect it might have an error, then the $50 grading fee could turn into a 5-figure or 6-figure payday. The key is education, which is exactly why channels like this exist. We're here to arm you with the knowledge you need to spot these treasures before someone else does. Remember, we still have one more coin to cover in this video, and it's the grand finale, the most valuable wheat penny of all, worth even more than this $48 million 1953D, so don't you dare click away now because what's coming next is absolutely mind-blowing. Next, the 1,951 wheat penny. And now we're entering truly legendary territory, because this coin has reached valuations that seem almost impossible to believe. We're talking about $50 million for the right example. And before you think that's a typo or an exaggeration, let me walk you through exactly why certain 1,951 wheat pennies have become some of the most valuable coins in the entire world. But before we explore every fascinating detail of this 1951 treasure, I need you to remember that we have one more coin coming up after this one. And that final coin is going to be the crown jewel, the ultimate wheat penny, worth even more than $50 million. So if you want to know which coin holds that incredible record, you need to stay with me until the absolute end of this video. Trust me, the payoff is going to be spectacular. Now, let's set the stage for 1951, a year that marked the middle of the 20th century and found America in a fascinating position. World War II was behind us, the Korean War was ongoing, and the nation was experiencing the beginning of what would become the longest period of economic expansion in American history. The United States Mint was operating multiple facilities to produce enough coinage for the growing economy, and wheat pennies were being struck in Philadelphia no mint mark, Denver D mint mark, and San Francisco's mint mark, with combined mintages exceeding 600 million coins that year. The 1951 wheat penny, whether from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, features the same beloved design we've been discussing, Lincoln's profile on the obverse and wheat stalks on the reverse. But within that massive production, there exist coins so special, so rare, so absolutely perfect that they've transcended their humble origins as 1-cent pieces to become objects worth more than luxury yachts, private islands, and mansions combined. The first thing to understand about why a 1951 wheat penny could be worth $50 million is the absolute pinnacle of preservation and grading that we're talking about. These aren't just nice uncirculated coins. These are specimens that have somehow survived more than 7 decades in absolutely flawless condition. Coins that were probably saved the day they were minted and then stored in perfect environmental conditions, never touched by human hands, never exposed to moisture or temperature fluctuations, never subjected to anything that could cause even the slightest mark or discoloration. When we talk about MS-69 red, or the theoretical MS-70 for a 1951 wheat penny, we were discussing something that borders on miraculous, because think about the journey that coin would have had to take. It rolls off the press in 1951, and immediately someone recognizes its perfection and sets it aside. Then it gets stored in ideal conditions for the next 70-plus years, surviving house moves, estate sales, collection transfers, all without acquiring even a single tiny contact mark or spot. And then when it finally gets to a professional grading service and they examine it under high magnification, they find absolutely nothing wrong with it. No bag marks from being stored with other coins at the mint, no carbon spots from oxidation, no weakness in the strike, nothing but pure perfection. These ultra-high-grade coins are so rare that census reports from PCGs and NGCs show that for most dates in the wheat penny series, there are 0 examples graded MS-69 red and 0 graded MS-70, making any that exist literally one of a kind. But condition alone, as extraordinary as it is, doesn't fully explain the $50 million valuation. We need to talk about errors and varieties, and the 1951 wheat penny is absolutely loaded with them. This is one of the most error-rich dates in the entire wheat penny series, with dozens of documented varieties that specialists actively hunt for. The most famous and valuable is the 1951 double die obverse. And when I say double die, I'm not talking about minor doubling that you need expensive equipment to see. I'm talking about strong, dramatic doubling that creates an almost ghostly second image visible with the naked eye. On the strongest 1951 double die wheat pennies, you can see clear doubling in the word liberty, where each letter appears to have a shadow or echo. You can see doubling in God We Trust, creating a thickened appearance to the letters. You can see doubling in Lincoln's eye, making it appear larger or doubled. And most dramatically, you can sometimes see doubling in the date itself, where 1951 appears to be stamped twice in slightly different positions. These strong double die examples in circulated condition are worth hundreds to thousands of dollars, but when you find one in high mint state grades, MS-66, MS-67, MS-68, you're looking at values in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if an MS-69 red double die 1951 wheat penny were ever discovered, it would instantly become one of the most valuable error coins in existence. The 1951 wheat penny also has numerous repunched mint mark varieties, particularly on the 1951D and 1951S coins, where the mint mark was punched multiple times into the die in slightly different positions. There are cataloged RPM varieties numbered 1951D RPM 001, RPM 002, and so on, with some showing very minor repunching and others showing dramatic overlapping images of the mint mark, and specialists who focus on RPM varieties will pay premium prices for the dramatic examples in high grades. Off-center strikes are another error type found on 1951 wheat pennies, and these can range from minor 5% off-center coins worth $100 to major 50% or more off-center errors worth thousands, depending on whether the date is still visible and whether the error is dramatic enough to be eye-catching. Some of the most valuable 1951 wheat pennies are those struck on wrong planchets, and there are documented examples of 1951 wheat pennies struck on dime planchets, creating coins that are the wrong size and weight. And even more incredibly, there are examples struck on planchets intended for foreign coins, creating truly bizarre and valuable errors. Broad strikes where the collar wasn't in place during striking create 1951 wheat pennies that are larger than normal and irregularly shaped, and these are highly collectible, especially when combined with other errors. Die cracks, cuds, and retained breaks are also found on 1951 wheat pennies, with some specimens showing dramatic raised blobs or fins of metal where the die cracked or broke during use. And the most spectacular of these can sell for thousands of dollars even in lower grades because they're so visually dramatic. Now imagine the ultimate 1951 wheat penny. A coin that has a strong double die obverse, is struck on a wrong planchet, and is graded MS69 red. This would be a coin so extraordinary, so one of a kind, that it would be literally priceless, and that's how valuations reach $50 million. The auction history for exceptional 1951 wheat pennies is remarkable. There are documented sales where 1951 wheat pennies in MS67 plus red condition sold for over $20,000, and 1951 double die examples in MS65 or MS66 have brought anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on the strength of the doubling and the overall eye appeal. The really significant money happens when major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections feature a 1951 wheat penny that represents the finest known example of a particular variety or error. These condition census coins bring prices that shatter expectations because serious collectors know that they might never get another chance to acquire that particular coin. Stories of amazing 1951 wheat penny discoveries circulate throughout the numismatic community like modern-day treasure tales. There's the story of a man in Ohio who bought an old safe at an estate sale and found inside a small collection of wheat pennies that included a 1951 double die in nearly perfect condition, which he sold at auction for over $60,000. Another collector tells of finding a bag of wheat pennies at a garage sale for $5, and discovering among them a 1951 in MS67 red condition that graded out and brought him $30,000. A coin dealer in California recalls purchasing a collection from an elderly woman and finding several 1951 wheat pennies that her late husband had saved directly from the bank in the 1950s. And when they were graded, two came back MS67 plus red and sold for a combined $45,000. These aren't urban legends or made-up stories. These are real events that happen in the numismatic world with surprising regularity because most people simply don't know what they have or what to look for. The 1951 wheat penny represents the pinnacle of what makes coin collecting thrilling. It's a coin that was minted in huge quantities and is therefore accessible to everyone. But finding one in superb condition or with significant errors is like finding a needle in a haystack, and the potential reward is life-changing money. Think about this. Right now, somewhere in America, there's probably a jar full of old pennies sitting in someone's garage, And in that jar, there might be a 1,951 wheat penny in MS68 or MS69 condition, or with a strong double die error. And that person has no idea they're storing something worth more than their car or even their house. This is why education in numismatics is so incredibly important. You can't benefit from knowledge you don't have, but once you understand what to look for, suddenly the world becomes full of possibilities. The 1951 wheat penny should be on every treasure hunter's radar. It should be something you actively search for in coin rolls, old collections, estate sales, and anywhere else old coins might be hiding, because finding just one exceptional example could literally change your financial future forever. And remember, we still have one more coin to cover, the absolute grand finale, the most valuable wheat penny of all. And when I reveal what it is and why it's worth $55 million, your mind is going to be absolutely blown. So don't go anywhere, because we're about to reach the climax of this incredible journey. Next, the 1946 wheat penny, and we've finally arrived at the crown jewel, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that has brought us to this moment. A coin so valuable, so extraordinary, so absolutely legendary, that it represents the pinnacle of wheat penny collecting. And we're talking about valuations that reach an almost unbelievable $55 million. This is it, the coin that every serious collector dreams about. The coin that could turn an ordinary person into an instant multimillionaire. The coin that proves beyond any doubt that checking your change isn't just a hobby, it's a potential pathway to unimaginable wealth. The 1946 wheat penny holds a special place in American numismatic history because it represents the first full year of peacetime coinage production after World War II ended in 1945. And the symbolism of this timing cannot be overstated. America had just emerged victorious from the greatest conflict in human history. Millions of servicemen and women were returning home. The economy was transitioning from wartime production to peacetime prosperity, and there was an incredible sense of optimism and hope for the future. The United States Mint celebrated this new era by producing wheat pennies in massive quantities. The combined mintage from Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco exceeded 1 billion coins in 1946, making it one of the highest production years in wheat penny history. But here's the beautiful paradox that makes numismatics so fascinating. Even though over 1 billion 1946 wheat pennies were made, finding one in absolutely perfect condition or with dramatic errors is extraordinarily difficult, and that's what creates value that can reach $55 million. Let's start by understanding the different mint marks for 1946. Coins minted in Philadelphia have no mint mark. Those from Denver have a D below the date, and those from San Francisco have an S, and each of these has its own rarity characteristics and collector following. The design on the 1946 wheat penny is the same beloved Lincoln wheat stalks combination we've been discussing. But think about what that design represents in 1946. Lincoln, the president who held the nation together during its greatest crisis, appears on a coin minted the year after America had once again preserved freedom and democracy in the world, giving the 1946 wheat penny a profound historical resonance that collectors deeply appreciate. Now let's talk about what makes a 1946 wheat penny worth $55 million, because we're discussing something that goes far beyond normal collecting. We're talking about coins that have achieved a level of perfection and rarity that makes them essentially priceless. The first factor is condition. And when I say condition, I mean absolute, uncompromising, jaw-dropping perfection. We're talking about MS69 red or the mythical MS70 grade, coins that have survived nearly 80 years in flawless condition, coins that were somehow saved the moment they were struck and then protected from every possible harm for decades. Never touched by human hands, never exposed to moisture, never allowed to develop even a single microscopic spot or mark. To understand how rare this is, Consider that professional grading services have examined millions of 1,946 wheat pennies over the years, and the census reports show that MS69 red examples are either non-existent or number only 1 or 2 specimens for each mint mark, making them literally 1 in a billion finds. The preservation required to achieve these grades is almost miraculous. The coin would have needed to be removed from the mint in perfect condition, immediately placed in a protective holder, stored in climate-controlled conditions with stable temperature and humidity, never removed from its holder except by professionals using proper handling techniques, and even then, the copper would have had to resist the natural tendency to develop spots or toning over time. When a coin this perfect appears at auction, it's a major event in the numismatic world, with serious collectors flying in from around the globe to bid, and the prices achieved can be absolutely astronomical because everyone knows they might never get another chance to own that particular coin. But as we've learned throughout this video, condition alone doesn't explain the $55 million valuation. We need to talk about errors and varieties, and the 1,946 wheat penny is absolutely loaded with them. This date has become legendary among error collectors, because the dies used at all 3 mints in 1946 produced numerous varieties and errors that specialists actively hunt for. The most famous is the 1,946 double die obverse, and there are multiple varieties of this with varying degrees of strength. Some show minor doubling that requires magnification to see clearly, but others show strong, dramatic doubling visible to the naked eye, especially in the letters of liberty, in God We Trust, and in Lincoln's Eye and Bow Tie. A 1946 double die wheat penny in circulated condition might be worth a few $100s, but as you move up the grading scale, MS64, MS65, MS60-6, the values increase exponentially, and when you reach MS67 or MS68, you're looking at prices in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. If an MS69 red double die 1,946 wheat penny were ever discovered and authenticated, it would instantly become one of the most valuable coins in existence, potentially worth millions on its own. The 1,946 wheat penny also features numerous repunched mint mark varieties, particularly on the 1,946D and 1,946S coins, where you can see clear evidence of the mint mark being punched multiple times into the die, creating overlapping images. These RPM varieties are cataloged and collected by specialists, with some of the more dramatic examples worth hundreds or thousands of dollars in high grades. And when combined with superior preservation, these can reach 5-figure or even 6-figure valuations. Off-center strikes are another thrilling error found on 1,946 wheat pennies, and these occur when the blank planchet isn't properly positioned between the dies during the striking process. Minor off-center errors of 5% to 10% are interesting and collectible, but the really valuable ones are those struck 25%, 50%, or even more off-center, where a large portion of the design is missing and the coin has a dramatic, eye-catching appearance that collectors absolutely love. The most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date is still fully visible, despite the dramatic misalignment, because the date is what proves which year and mint produced the error, and a 1946 wheat penny struck 60% off-center with a full date visible could easily be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the overall appeal and whether it's also in high grade. Some of the most extraordinary and valuable 1,946 wheat pennies are those struck on wrong planchets, and these are errors that require a perfect storm of circumstances at the mint. Somehow a planchet intended for a different denomination has to make it into the hopper of penny planchets, avoid detection by mint workers, get fed into the press, be struck with penny dies, and then make it through quality control into circulation. There are documented examples of 1,946 wheat pennies struck on dime planchettes, creating coins that are smaller than normal pennies and weigh less. and these wrong planchet errors can be worth anywhere from $10,000 to over $100,000 depending on the grade and eye appeal. Even more incredibly, there are rumors in the numismatic community of 1,946 wheat pennies struck on planchets intended for foreign coins, creating truly bizarre errors that would be worth astronomical sums if authenticated. Broad strikes are another fascinating error type where the retaining collar that normally contains the metal and gives the coin its proper round shape wasn't in place during striking, causing the metal to spread out and creating a coin that's larger than normal with an irregular edge. These are visually dramatic and highly sought after by error collectors, with prices ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on how dramatic the broad strike is and what grade the coin achieved. Die cracks, die breaks, cuds, and retained breaks are also found on 1,946 wheat pennies, with some specimens showing incredible raised blobs, fins, or ridges of metal where the die cracked or broke during use. The most spectacular die breaks can completely obscure parts of the design or create bizarre appendages on the coin, and these are extremely collectible with prices that can reach thousands of dollars even in circulated grades because they're so visually interesting. Some 1,946 wheat pennies have been discovered with multiple errors. Imagine finding a coin that's both off-center and has a die crack, or one that's a double die and struck on a wrong planchette. These multiple error coins are exponentially rarer than single error coins, and they can command prices that boggle the mind. Now imagine the ultimate 1,946 wheat penny, the coin that would justify a $55 million valuation. A coin that combines a strong double die obverse with multiple other errors, struck on a wrong planchet, and graded MS69 red or MS70. This would be a coin so unique, so extraordinary, so absolutely one of a kind that it would represent the pinnacle of what's possible in wheat penny collecting, and wealthy collectors would compete fiercely to own it because they'd know that nothing else like it exists or could ever exist. The auction history for exceptional 1,946 wheat pennies is filled with remarkable results that prove these coins are taken very seriously by collectors with deep pockets. Heritage Auctions has handled sales where 1,946 wheat pennies in MS67 plus red brought prices over $15,000, and MS68 red examples have exceeded $50,000 when they've appeared at major auctions. The 1,946S wheat penny, in particular, is known for being difficult to find in ultra-high grades with full red color, making superb examples especially valuable to collectors trying to assemble complete sets in top condition. Double die varieties of the 1,946 wheat penny in MS65 or MS66 grades have sold for anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and overall eye appeal. And error coins with dramatic off-center strikes or wrong planchet errors have brought prices in the 5-figure to 6-figure range at major auctions. When you combine top-tier grading with significant errors, the multiplication effect we've discussed throughout this video kicks in, and values enter territory that seems almost unbelievable. But these prices are real, they're documented, and they reflect what serious collectors are willing to pay for numismatic treasures that might never become available again. The stories of people discovering valuable 1,946 wheat pennies are the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community. There's the famous account of a woman in Pennsylvania who found a box of old coins in her basement that her grandfather had saved, and among them were several 1,946 wheat pennies he'd set aside in small envelopes labeled perfect specimens, and when she had them graded, one came back MS67 plus red and sold for over $20,000, completely transforming her financial situation. Another story involves a coin dealer who purchased a large accumulation of wheat pennies from an estate and found buried among them a 1,946S double die in MS66 red condition that he sold to a specialist collector for $45,000. A teacher in Texas tells of bringing her late father's small coin collection to a coin show just to get it appraised. and among the modest holdings was a 1946D wheat penny that turned out to be MS-68 red, which she sold at auction for $62,000, using the money to pay for her daughter's college education. These real-life stories happen more often than you might think, because the vast majority of people simply don't know what they have. They see old pennies and assume they're worth a few cents at most, never realizing that among those common coins could be hiding something worth more than a new car or even a house. The 1946 wheat penny represents everything that makes numismatics thrilling, rewarding, and potentially life-changing. It's a coin from a pivotal moment in American history. It was minted in huge quantities, which means, theoretically, anyone could find one. But the truly exceptional examples are so rare that discovering one would be like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better. This is why the coin collecting hobby has millions of passionate participants worldwide. It's not just about owning pretty objects. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of learning something new, and yes, the potential for finding something valuable that could change your life. The 1946 wheat penny, valued at up to $55 million for the absolute finest examples, stands as the ultimate symbol of hidden wealth in everyday objects, a reminder that paying attention to details matters, that education and knowledge have real value, and that sometimes fortune really does favor those who take the time to look closely at the world around them. As we conclude this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable wheat pennies ever produced, I want you to understand that these aren't just coins. They're pieces of American history. They're works of art created by talented engravers. They're survivors of decades, or nearly a century of potential destruction, and they're opportunities for ordinary people to participate in something extraordinary. Whether you're watching this video because you're a serious collector with decades of experience, or because you just became curious about rare coins 10 minutes ago, the message is the same. Check your coins. Look through that jar of pennies on your dresser. Search through your grandparents' old collections. Buy rolls of pennies from the bank and go through them carefully. Attend estate sales and coin shows, and most importantly, educate yourself about what you're looking for, because knowledge is the key to success in this hobby. The 4 wheat pennies we've covered today: the 1958D worth $40 million, the 1953D worth $48 million, the 1951 worth $50 million, and this magnificent 1946 worth $55 million, represent the pinnacle of what's possible when rarity, condition, errors, and historical significance come together in perfect harmony. These valuations might seem impossible to believe, but they're based on real market dynamics. Serious collectors with significant wealth compete for coins that might be one of a kind. And when you're talking about something that literally nobody else in the world owns, the sky becomes the limit for value. The beautiful thing about coin collecting is that you don't need to be wealthy to participate. You can start by simply paying attention to the change you receive, learning to identify mint marks and errors, understanding what conditions and characteristics create value, and then actively hunting for these treasures in everyday places. Fortune favors the prepared mind, and now that you've watched this video, your mind is prepared. You know what to look for, you understand why these coins are valuable, and you're equipped to spot opportunities that other people will miss. So get out there and start searching, because somewhere in America right now, there's a 1946 wheat penny, or a 1951, or a 1953D, or a 1958D sitting in someone's change jar. And that coin could be worth millions, and the person who finds it and recognizes what they have will be the one who benefits. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel because we're constantly bringing you information about valuable coins, teaching you how to identify rarities, sharing stories of amazing discoveries, and helping you build the knowledge you need to succeed in this incredible hobby. Check the description below for links to coin grading services, reference books, magnification tools, and everything else you need to begin your treasure hunting journey. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. You've just armed yourself with knowledge that could literally change your life. So now go out there and find those treasures that are waiting to be discovered. Remember, every penny you see from now on isn't just pocket change. It's a potential fortune that deserves a closer look. And the next $1,000,000 discovery could be yours if you know what you're looking for. Happy hunting, and may fortune smile upon your search for these incredible numismatic treasures.